piano. I wish I stuck with it a little more. I still love the instrument, I still play it for fun, but I wouldn't hire myself as a pianist. I don't consider myself a professional piano player, but every now and then I can get lost playing it and come up with some nice music. But yeah, I was very young, and a few years later I discovered the guitar, and it was all over. It helped because I would start to make connections between the two, and every now and then I'll figure out a piano piece, and it'll help with coming up with parts for the guitar. Especially two-handed playing, because it helps your coordination, and it's easy to it's easy to not think enough about the timing, because you don't really have to be your own rhythm section the way you do when you play solo piano, but it's very helpful. So I think it helps your timing a lot, even if you just know a few simple piano pieces. The first guitar was a very cheap classical guitar that was found in a garage sale. And it was very hard to play. The strings felt like a mile off of the neck. But I hung in there, and once I was able to play that guitar, I got a very cheap electric guitar. And then after a few years, I got a not so cheap. My first real guitar I consider was a Les Paul, an actual 80s Les Paul that I wish I still had. At one point, I was very stupid. I sold it. It felt old. It felt dated. Of course, the Les Paul never gets old.
Have you ever tried to get it back?
I did, and the guy who I sold it to sent me a really nice message. He'd been following my career, and congratulated me, and then when I talked to him about buying back that guitar, he told me that guitar is all he has. All he has is his dog and his guitar. His wife threw him out of the house. He lost his job. I said, you know what? All right, keep the guitar. And it's funny because I was having a conversation with Joe Satriani. Joe had a Telecaster that you can't picture him playing a Telecaster, but he had one, and he wishes he kept it. He sold it. I think we all have an instrument we let go somewhere along the way. My current main guitar is right here. It's the ESP Alex Skolnick model, and it's a sort of a blend of the ESP Eclipse. It's got that kind of ease of playability, but the tone is something that is more like a classic Les Paul. And I really wanted a guitar that somebody that doesn't play through a lot of effects could enjoy. Like if Warren Haynes, for example, played this guitar, or Gary Moore if he were still around. Somebody not gimmick based at all. I want somebody like that to be able to appreciate the guitar. And hopefully they would. Yeah. I've got a couple of these. I've got one of those. The whole band is outfitted with the Kemper profilers, and it's nice. The sound is very consistent, and you don't really need foot pedals with these, but I have I have two special pedals that I like, and they give a certain sound. And one of them's made by a company called Tone Concept, and it's called the Distillery. And they're actually working on a custom pedal for me, which I think should be out by the next damn show. And then there's another one, the company called Jam Pedals, which is Actually, both of those are Greek companies, interestingly. And then occasionally I'll use, depends on the situation, but the project, the Metal Allegiance, we do some covers, and sometimes I'm the only guitarist. So for that, sometimes I'll use a wah or an old MXR Phase 90, especially if we're doing like an old Van Halen track and I'm trying to capture that sound. The most recent stuff, I used a Buddha head, and it's one I worked on with them, and it's a great amp, but it's also large and it's difficult to travel with. So I tend to use that in the studio more often, or for gigs that don't require a lot of travel. And then the pedals are pretty much the same, whether it's live or in the studio. It would probably be the Distillery, because the Tone Concept Distillery just makes everything sound better. The Tube Dreamer, my jam pedal, and a delay pedal. I need a good delay. And there's a couple of different ones I use. There's a Buddha that I use sometimes, a delay pedal. Jam Pedals has one called the Delay Llama, which is nice. And then for larger amps, there's one called the Giga Delay that's made by Roland that I like a lot. But any one of those would do just fine, as long as it's a good delay pedal. Well, I love playing jazz improvisation. I guess you could call it that. Jazz, clean jazz guitar with chord melodies. I like playing world music. I love playing acoustic guitar. I played on a nice progressive jazz rock album last year. The artist's name is Jane Getter. The group's called Jane Getter Premonition. And it's produced by Adam Holtzman, who used to play with Miles Davis and now plays for Steven Wilson. So yeah, I like to do all those genres. Getting to see the world and just feeling like a citizen of the world is just wonderful. This summer I've gone to Russia, Poland, Slovenia, Czechoslovakia. Just had a couple of days off in Nuremberg. I didn't really know that city as well, and it was really nice. Next week in between a tour and a music camp I'm doing, I've got a few days, so I'm just staying in Paris for 5 days, one of my favorite cities. And, I have friends that never leave, that they dream about like seeing the world, and I consider that one of the great, and that's one of the great things about doing this and playing music. It also inspires the music. Everywhere I go, I get inspired by different styles of music, and my album Planetary Coalition kind of reflects that, because each song is inspired by a different region of the world. And I hope to do another one of those records one day. Well, I've discovered writing. I love to write, and people seem to like what I have to write. I've kept a blog for a number of years. I did a memoir, and it's called Geek to Guitar Hero. And I read a lot. I always have a book on tour. I'm reading Dostoevsky right now. When I was in Russia, I wanted to read Dostoevsky and really get into it. But it's nice having guitar as a full-time job too. I'm not complaining. Yeah, when I first started playing, my biggest guitar heroes were Kiss. They were I was very young, and they were like these superheroes. So it was almost like having Batman and Superman in the same band. And then as I got older, I discovered other guitarists. The first person that made me want to be a lead guitarist was definitely Edward Van Halen, and the first Van Halen record especially, and he was followed by Randy Rhoads. And I think since those are more hard rock oriented players, that's one of the reasons I got into playing hard rock and heavy metal. But after I discovered them, I learned I did my homework and learned a lot of the history of rock guitar playing. So I had every Hendrix record I could get. I learned a lot of Cream, Jeff Beck, Led Zeppelin. And then when I discovered jazz, it was initially it was the electric group of Miles Davis, and he had guitar players. He had a number of great guitar players. He had John Scofield, Mike Stern, Robin Ford. All of them were big influences. And later, Pat Martino, the early work of George Benson, who many people think of as a singer, and he's a great singer. He's got this incredible collection of jazz guitar playing, and he still sounds great, but his 60s jazz guitar work is amazing. And his biggest influence was Wes Montgomery, who influenced everybody. I mean, Satriani and Eric Johnson will talk about Wes Montgomery as well. So yeah, there's so many. And then my whole world music interest started with John McLaughlin and Paco de Lucia, and of course Al Di Meola. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. It's hard to keep track. But if I had to pick one new guitar player that is really inspiring, I think Derek Trucks. And he's a different genre than what I'm known for. But in some ways it's very relatable too. And I've seen him live. He has no effects. He plugs straight into an amp, and it's just so much expression and so much tone. It's amazing. And you forget that he's younger. I mean, he's not a kid anymore. But I first heard him. I think he was barely out of high school, and people said, "Well, he sounds like Duane Allman with better intonation." I definitely like the sound of cable better, and if I'm doing instrumental music, I see no reason not to have a cable. At the same time, if I'm playing a big show, a big concert, as I'm speaking to you, I'm going to play a big festival called Summerbreeze Festival. It's going to be a much better show if I'm not tied down to a cable. And I'm also, being in a band like Testament, it's, there's a lot of other things happening on stage. My tone is blended with another guitarist and a bass, and drums, and they're very loud, and everybody plays on 10 at the same time. So I think it's better to have no cable and just give the best performance. But that's different if it's an instrumental situation, or if it's just me playing guitar, and you really hear everything I do, and I'm more exposed. Then I'd rather have a cable. But yeah, with this guitar, I have the option to do both, single coil and humbucker. And there's certain situations where I might switch from one to the other. I might start out, like the blues, for example, I might start out clean and going for more of like a Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan sound. You know, kind of like, and then, oh, sorry, that's actually the double, that's the, like this sound is single coil, right here. Right. So if I'm playing a blues, I might start out with that kind of thing. Right, it's got the twang. But then as the solo's building, you know, say if I want to hit a distortion pedal, then I'll do this, and then now suddenly now I'm in humbucker land. So, you know, it can work. You can use both in the same song. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there are moments where I would rather just play acoustic because it just feels very natural, and that's why I did an acoustic record a couple years ago, Planetary Coalition, because that's always been a part of my playing, and usually. The first part of my day is spent playing acoustic. I'd rather pick up an acoustic, get used to that, just make sound, you know, play natural sounds. But then once I'm warmed up on an acoustic, then I'm happy to switch to an electric. But generally, if I'm going to pick up one or the other, it's an acoustic.